This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
The rule of law, because the rule of law is about fairness. Fairness includes a fair trial, due process. There's a relation whom I deeply admire, Werner von Rosenstiel. He, like me, was first an attorney in Germany and later also in the United States. He emigrated to the US in 1939 and fought for democracy against Nazi Germany. In his book, Tales of an American Soldier, he quotes his ideal and former boss, Justice Jackson. What separates justice from vengeance is fairness. This is from Jackson's opening statement in 1945 for the Nuremberg trial. Jackson describes the effect of the presidential decree from 1933, which suspended individual liberties without the right to a judicial hearing, among other legal safeguards. Secret arrests, indefinite detention without charges, without evidence, without hearing, without a counsel. No court could issue an injunction or writ of habeas corpus. This is why I understand justice as fairness.
I stand for the rule of law because as long as I can remember, when we studied the Constitution in high school, I learned what the phrase meant and what it stood for. I always believed it was the law of the land and no one was above the law. Even the president of our great country is not exempt. The rule of law is essential to ensure our citizens' rights and freedoms are not breached. It is also a necessary document to enable a reliable and equitable way for the United States of America to operate. Even as a child growing up, my parents instilled in their children that all men are treated equally under the law, no matter who they are in their titles.
I stand for the rule of law because, well, I think the devil's speech from A Man for All Seasons says it better than I can. So my husband and I are going to do it for you.
So now you give the devil the benefit of law.
Yes, what would you do? Cut a great road through the law to get after the devil?
Yes, I'd cut down every law in England to do that.
Oh, and when the last law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper, the laws all being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's law, not God's. And if you cut them down and you're just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? Yes, I'd give the devil the benefit of the law for my own safety's sake.
This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. What an incredible sight. I am so inspired. Thank you for coming. We are gathered here at this historic moment and in front of this storied building. Not that better? Not just as lawyers, judges, and legal professionals, but as guardians of something much greater than ourselves, the rule of law itself. Look around you. In over 48 cities across America at this very moment, thousands of legal professionals are standing just as we are, united in defense of judicial independence, the integrity of our profession, and the constitutional principles that define our nation. My name is Tracy Fight Love. I am the founder and executive director of Lawyers for Good Government. Thank you. Thank you. For the past 8 years, I've worked alongside many of you to mobilize lawyers in defense of civil and human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. But I can say without hesitation, we have never faced a moment quite like this one. The oath we took as attorneys has never carried more weight than it does today. We swore to support the Constitution of the United States, not just to passively respect it, but to actively defend it when threatened. And make no mistake, that's right, those threats are real and immediate, and we will not be silent in the face of these attacks. We have witnessed executive orders targeting law firms for representing clients adverse to this administration. We've seen judges face impeachment threats for upholding the law. We have watched as court orders have been treated as optional suggestions rather than binding mandates. This is not about politics or partisanship. This is about principles that transcend political divides. The rule of law is not a Democratic or Republican value. It's an American value. It is the foundation that makes all of our other rights possible. And there are some who would have you believe that the rule of law is a partisan issue or a complicated issue or a confusing issue that we need to have context to fully evaluate. It is not. It is so simple, children intuitively understand it. Imagine a child accused by their parents, punished, sent to their room without supper, without ever being given a chance to defend themselves. What would he say? No fair. Adults will tell that child over and over again as he gets older, you know what? Life isn't fair. And that's true. Life isn't fair, but government should be. That is what the rule of law is designed to protect, to create a fair, just government of the people. In a moment, you will hear from distinguished leaders who understand what's at stake. Then together, we will reaffirm our oaths, the solemn promises we made when we first entered this profession to support the Constitution of the United States. Before we do that, I want to thank our co-sponsors for this event and every one of you for standing up at this critical moment. Thank you to these co-sponsors, Alliance for Justice, American Constitution Society, Asian Pacific American Bar Association of DC, the Bar Association of the District of Columbia, the Hispanic Bar Association of the District of Columbia, the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, the National Bar Association, the National Women's Law Center Action Fund, Partners for Democracy, the South Asian Bar Association of Washington, D.C., the Washington Bar Association, the Women's Bar Association of the District of Columbia, Women Lawyers Forward, and Women Lawyers on Guard Action Fund. As we observe Law Day, we also want to extend our deepest gratitude to the many lawyers in attendance who are, have been, or maybe recently left our nation's civil service. Yep. They are proudly serving our country and the Constitution we each swore to defend. I know, for example, that we have many distinguished guests in the audience who until recently served in the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. If this is you, and if you're comfortable doing so, would you please raise your hand, civil servants and former civil servants? Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to say this. To you and every other civil servant in attendance, we see you. We recognize your unwavering commitment to upholding our Constitution and protecting the fundamental rights of all people. Your work has touched countless lives across our nation, ensuring equal protection under the law, safeguarding voting rights, combating discrimination, and holding institutions accountable. I would also like to take a moment to publicly acknowledge and recognize the members of Congress who are standing in support of the rule of law today. We sent official invitations to this event to every representative and senator who holds a law degree, regardless of their political affiliation, to ask them if they would attend and demonstrate their support. In response, I am pleased that the following members of Congress are here in attendance, and we are so grateful for them being here. You will hear from each of them a bit later on. Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, Representative Sam Liccardo from California, Representative Jamie Raskin from Maryland, Representative Glenn Ivey from Maryland, Representative Suzanne Bonamici from Oregon, Representative Lizzie Fletcher from Texas, and Representative Hank Johnson from Georgia. Thank you. And last but not least, our next speaker, who I am honored to introduce, Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, representing Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District since 2018. Congresswoman Scanlon has dedicated her career to serving the most vulnerable, first as a lawyer and now in Congress. She currently serves on the House Committee on Rules, House Judiciary Committee, and serves as ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on the Constitution and Limited Government. She also chairs the House caucuses on access to legal aid, youth mentoring, and foster youth. As a staunch believer that everyone is entitled to equal protection under the law, Congresswoman Scanlon previously worked as National Pro Bono Counsel at a major U.S. law firm, where she directed and supervised more than 600 lawyers across 15 offices to provide more than 50,000 hours of pro bono legal services annually to low-income clients and nonprofit organizations. Under her leadership, the pro bono program worked on critical issues, including voting rights, child advocacy, immigration, public benefits, and criminal justice reform. Before her election to the U.S. House of Representatives, Congresswoman Scanlon also served as an attorney at the Education Law Center, president of her local school board, and co-chair of the Voting Rights Task Force of the Association of Pro Bono Counsel. She is a graduate of Colgate University and University of Pennsylvania Law School. Congresswoman Scanlon.
Thank you. Thank you all for being out here to recognize Law Day and the necessity that all of us, but particularly those in the legal profession, stand up for the rule of law and judicial independence, not just on Law Day, but every day. As lawyers, we've all taken an oath to support and defend our Constitution. Many of us here have also taken the oath of elected office to support and defend our Constitution. In doing so, we've vowed to protect our system of government and the rule of law upon which our country is built. Right now, it is entirely clear that the principles we've sworn to uphold are under attack. I think you all understand the urgency of this moment. Those in power are testing fundamental boundaries. Their actions are flying in the face of our American tradition that no one is above the law. And we're seeing them hope that the accountability system and checks and balances upon power enshrined in our Constitution will not hold. But as attorneys, we have a crucial role in ensuring that it does hold. I come to you as one who spent decades organizing and persuading lawyers to fulfill their obligation to provide legal services pro bono publico, free legal services for the public good. I believe now is the time to build on the call to action of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. That summer, he called upon the most prestigious law firms in the land to help educate the public on the importance of civil rights and the need to represent people to secure those rights. Now we face a similar call to action in the face of threats to our civil rights and our Constitution. Once again, it is critical that those in the legal profession stand united to protect our constitutional system. So on this Law Day, I'm asking all of you and those who aren't here to use your voices, to use your expertise, to use your professional obligations to defend our democracy, to defend it in the courts, and in educating the public about our constitutional system and why it matters. Because if we don't stand up now for the rights and freedoms of some, whether that's due process, free speech, or anything else, then we don't stand up for the rights of anyone. And that means that the liberties of all people all across America are under threat. It is particularly important in this moment that we show young Americans that this isn't an abstract academic exercise, because they understand, I think as Tracy just indicated, they understand that just as with schoolyard bullies, when those in power challenge the rule of law, they challenge decency and fundamental fairness. Each incremental violation is designed to test what we will tolerate. It's calculated. It can be tempting to believe that if we just let one small transgression slide, then maybe it'll be the last, but it never is. And by the time some realize that they should have stood up firmly to the first few nudges, it can be too late. So standing up for our founding principles isn't about virtue signaling. It's our fundamental duty to preserve our democracy. This is our gift to future generations. It's how we plant stakes in time and declare what matters, even if a small act may seem trivial in the moment, but to allow someone or a group of people to trample on the carefully crafted checks and balances in our Constitution or the liberties enshrined in the Bill of Rights or other amendments, that's a disgrace. A society that abandons its core principles is a deeply troubled one. And Law Day, May 1st, was established by President Eisenhower to celebrate the rule of law after the horrors of World War II showed us the consequences to a free society when the rule of law breaks down. The rule of law is not an abstract, it's a living ideal that must shape our everyday lives. One that all of us must live up to, particularly those in the legal profession. It's a principle we can't take for granted and one we need to defend. We must stand up to dangerous attempts to undermine our Constitution. We must uphold the rule of law, judicial independence, and the independence of the legal profession. And we must always strive for a more just, more fair America. So let us all today reaffirm our oaths to the Constitution with these values and promises in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Representative Scanlon. I am now very proud to introduce the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, who asked that I tell you only 2 things about him. Number 1, his book, We Are Students, was banned in Texas, although it is for sale in the Supreme Court bookstore. And the next day, he was banned in Russia by Putin for life. Here he is, Representative Raskin.
Hey, everybody. Banned in Texas, banned in Russia, but I'm making it here at the Supreme Court today with all the lawyers, all the great lawyers. So to the bar associations and the bar groups and all you natural persons out there, thank you for exercising your right to petition for redress of grievances, your right to assemble, your right of free speech, right here in the nation's capital, right in front of the Supreme Court. What an honor it is to be with you guys. Tom Paine said that in the absolute societies, the king is law, but in America, the law will be king. The law will be king. So, look, you guys know, I'm seeing some of my former colleagues from American University's Washington College of Law here out in force. So you're putting me in the mood of a law professor. And I think after even, 100 days of this or many years of this, the whole country needs a little constitutional refresher. What do you think? What do you think? So, so forgive me, because you can take the law professor out of the classroom, you know, but let's start with the beautiful preamble to the Constitution, our mission statement, right? We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and preserve to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of liberty, do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of these United States of America. Okay. And you know, the very next sentence in the Constitution is the first sentence of Article 1. And what does it say? All legislative power shall be vested in the Congress of the United States. That's all the lawmaking power. That's all the power of the purse, the spending power, the budget power. Page after page, we've got the power to regulate commerce domestically and internationally. We've got the power over tariffs. We've got the power to declare war. We've got the power to raise armies and navies. And you get through all of that, the budget and the spending and the taxes. Then you get to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, and all other powers necessary and proper to the execution of the foregoing powers, right? Then after all that, you get to Article 2, right? 4 short little paragraphs, the most important of which reads, the president shall be impeached for treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay? But look, what is the core job? You know, some of my colleagues will sometimes say, we've got 3 co-equal branches. Give me a break. First of all, co-equal is not even a word, right? That's like extremely unique or something like that. It's not even a word. If we're equal, why did James Madison say in the Federalist Papers that the legislative is clearly the predominant branch of government? Why is it we've got the power to impeach, try, and convict the president, but he doesn't have the power to impeach, try, and convict us? Okay? It's because the framers understood the dangers of a king. One person who thought that they had mad power over everybody else. Our Constitution was designed against kings and queens and monarchs and nobles. It's unconstitutional to create titles of nobility in the United States of America. But anyway, you get through all that, and the core job of the president, after being the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy in times of actual conflict, not commander-in-chief of the country or the government, commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy in times of actual conflict, the president's core job is what? To take care that the laws are faithfully executed, right? Not diminished, not trashed, not reversed. If it's gone through the House and it's passed, it's gone through the Senate and it's passed, it's been signed into law by the president or vetoed by the president and overridden by 2/3 of Congress, then it is a law. Your job is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. All we say to the president of the United States is, do your job. Do your job. Now, fortunately, we've got Article 3, right? And the Supreme Court said, Chief Justice Marshall said in 1803, it is emphatically the province and the duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. That is the role of the court. And under the Supremacy Clause, the Constitution and the federal laws under it are supreme. We don't have a supreme leader. We have a supreme constitution in America. And all of it is for the benefit of we the people. And that's why the Bill of Rights is so central to what makes America, America, right? And right now, all of it is under attack. The First Amendment, the freedom of speech is under attack. The freedom of press is under attack. You know, the press has the right to call the Gulf of Mexico without being kicked out of the White House. Okay? Free exercise, the Establishment Clause, the right to assemble, the right to petition for redress of grievances, due process, the two most beautiful words in the English language. All of it's under attack. It is due process which separates the rights and the freedoms of the people from arbitrary state power. It is due process. And as the courts have been saying, if you can sweep non-citizens up off of the street with no criminal charges against them and deport them to a torturer's dungeon prison in another country, then you can do it to citizens too. Because if you can do it without due process, you don't even have the right to assert that you are a citizen. So we are going to stand up for the Bill of Rights for all persons in the United States of America. We're going to stand up for due process for everybody. We're going to stand up for the right of free speech. We're going to stand up for the right of free press. My friends, I'm going to leave you with the words of some of the great democracy patriots, because there's no democracy without the rule of law, just like there's no rule of law without lawyers, and there's no rule of law without democracy. You don't find it in the dictatorships, in the tyrannies. Democracy and the rule of law go together, and they stand best when they stand together. And so I want to quote to you first a great lawyer, Thomas Jefferson, who at another time like this, in fact, they're invoking some of the same laws today at the time of the Alien and Sedition Acts, the time of the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. A friend wrote Jefferson, despairing of the condition of the country. And Jefferson wrote him back and he said, "A little patience, and the reign of witches shall pass over, their spells dissolve, and the people recovering their true sight will restore their government to its true principles. In the meantime, we're enduring all of the malignities and horrors of this period. But if the game runs against us sometimes," Jefferson said, "then we must have patience until our luck turns, because this is a game where principles are at stake. The great Thomas Jefferson. I want to quote to you the great Marylander Frederick Douglass, who was born 40 minutes away from here at the Wye River Plantation into slavery. And he escaped from slavery to become our great freedom fighter through the Civil War, through Reconstruction. And Frederick Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And the struggle may be moral, it may be physical, it may be moral and physical, but there must be struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. A message to you from the people of Maryland. And I'll leave you finally with the words of the great Tom Paine, who my son Tommy was named after. And you know, Tom Paine got here in 1774, 2 years before the American Revolution. He fell in love with the promise of America. He said, this land lives up to its values and its laws and its ideals. It will become an asylum to humanity, he said. Not an insane asylum, mind you, but a place of refuge for people seeking freedom from religious and political and intellectual repression from all over the world. And 1776 was a tough year. Half the people were running around saying, you can't beat the kings and the queens and the monarchs and the autocrats. For most of history, people have lived under tyrants like Vladimir Putin. You can't disentangle church and state. But half of the people said, no, let's give it a chance. Let's try to wrest government on the principle of the consent of the governed, and all persons having unalienable rights like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and all of us being created equal. And Paine wanted to write a pamphlet to give people hope and encouragement when it wasn't clear which way people were going. And he wanted people to pledge to each other their sacred honor, their fortunes and their lives, their property, to hang tough for democracy and freedom. And he wrote this pamphlet called The American Crisis. I'm going to quote a little passage for you, and I'm going to update the language pursuant to strict instructions from Nancy Pelosi, who said Tom Paine was a feminist, and that he wouldn't mind, and he was fighting for women's voting rights back in the 18th century. But anyway, Paine said, these are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause and their country. But everyone that stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation. The more difficult the struggle, the more glorious in the end will be our victory. Let's make that victory ours. Thank you, lawyers. Thank you, Bar Association. Hands up.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Raskin. Thank you so much. It is my honor to next introduce Wiley Adams, the 82nd president of the National Bar Association, presiding over the NBA during its centennial celebration. He retired in 2020 as the chief legal officer of one of the 10 largest asset management businesses in the world. He earned his JD from the University of Wisconsin Law School and his BA from Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois, majoring in accounting, business administration, economics, and political science. He serves on the board of the only Black-owned bank in Illinois, and we are so pleased to have him with us, Mr. Wiley Adams.
Greetings, good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. And I want to take a moment of privilege to introduce you to our Vice President of Sections and Divisions, Kimberly Ward, and also to my partner in justice, my lovely wife, Lisa Adams, who's here with me today. So it is an honor to stand before you today on National Law Day, a day when we pause to reflect not only on the law that governs us, but on the deeper ideals that define us. At the foundation of this nation is a simple yet profound belief that all people are endowed with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These rights are not gifts from the government. They are inherent to our humanity. And it is the rule of law that gives these rights meaning in our daily lives. The rule of law is not merely a principle enshrined in our books or etched in marble. It is a living promise. It ensures that no one, no matter how powerful, stands above the law, and that every person, no matter how humble, is protected by it. As lawyers, we have a solemn duty not only to advocate for our clients, but to protect the integrity of the rule of law itself. That means standing firm for the freedom of the press, because a free and independent press is the sunlight that keeps democracy alive. It means defending the independence of the judiciary, because a free and independent judiciary and the judges that decide cases must be free from political pressure or intimidation. And it means upholding due process, even when it is inconvenient, especially when it is inconvenient, because justice delayed is justice denied. And shortcuts around due process out of mere convenience erode the very freedom we claim to cherish. You know, as I was riding over here today, I rode past the African American Museum of History and Culture. And I've heard that certain exhibits and artifacts were being removed from our museum. So as I stand here today, I would be remiss if I did not say, President Trump, keep your hands off our museum. So today, the challenges we face are real. Attacks on truth, on institutions, on the very fabric of democratic governance. So on this National Law Day, we dedicate ourselves to the cause of justice. We stand in proud tradition of those who understood that the rule of law must be a shield for the vulnerable, not a weapon for the powerful. So let us leave here not just as practitioners of law, but as guardians of liberty, protectors of democracy, and champions of enduring American promise. Thank you, and may justice always light our path. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adams. We now come to a pivotal moment in our gathering, one that reminds us of the sacred promises we've all made as members of the legal profession. We will first hear from 5 distinguished members of Congress who, before serving in the legislative branch, took attorney oaths in their respective states. They understand the sacred responsibility we bear as guardians of justice, and each will share the attorney oath from their home state, demonstrating how our profession speaks with many voices, but one commitment across this great nation. Following their presentations, we will invite all attorneys present today to join in a collective reaffirmation of our oath led by retired administrative law judge Leslie A. Susan. This act is more than symbolic. It is a renewal of our professional vows at a time when they have never been more important. So please help me welcome our congressional colleagues, starting first from the great state of Delaware with Senator Chris Coons, who will share Delaware's attorney's oath.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Are we proud to be Americans living under a constitution in a nation dedicated to the rule of law? In 1992, I took the oath as a young Delaware attorney. I've been a member of the Delaware Bar ever since. And as a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I've conducted confirmation hearing after confirmation hearing. I have questioned and pressed and asked for commitments for a generation of federal judges to respect and observe the rule of law. From attorneys general to federal prosecutors to judges. My question has always been, do you understand that we all swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, not an oath of loyalty to any one politician, potentate, prince, or self-appointed king? And I've let the answer to that guide for whom I have voted. My small state was the first state to ratify the Constitution. And our small but mighty bar of 3,200 members is proud to have contributed what we have to our nation's independence. So it's an honor to count you among those who gather to celebrate Law Day and to repeat the somewhat quirky, a little antiquated, but fabulous lawyer's oath from Delaware. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Delaware, that I will behave myself in the office of an attorney within the courts, accounting to the best of my learning and ability, and with all good fidelity as to the court, as to my client, and that I will use no falsehood, nor delay any person's cause through lucre or malice. So help me God. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator Coons. Next up from California, we have Representative Sam Liccardo, who will share the California Attorney's Oath.
Well, good afternoon. We got any attorneys around here? That's good, because we're going to need some pretty soon. My words to you are very simple. Thank you. We're 100 days in of this awful nightmare, and already 93 federal courts have issued injunctions, Republican and Democratic appointed judges, because of the extraordinary work that you and our brethren are doing throughout our country. Thank you for standing up for our Constitution. I know you don't stand up for our Constitution because you're lawyers. You stand up for our Constitution because you're Americans. And collectively, we say to Donald Trump, our Constitution is not negotiable. And I love the sign. You're damn right. We're going to impeach him in 2026 when we get the chance. But until then, sue the bastards. All right. I've got an oath to offer from the great state of California that I took when I was a little younger. Okay, maybe 30 years. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of an attorney and counselor at law to the best of my knowledge and ability. As an officer of the court, I will strive to conduct myself at all times with dignity, courtesy, and integrity. Thank you all for what you're doing throughout our country.
Thank you, Representative Liccardo. Next up from Maryland, Representative Glenn Ivey, who will share Maryland's oath.
How you doing out there? Yeah, I had to ditch the coat. It's so hot out here. My goodness. And for a bald guy, it's tough on the head. Let me tell you. Look, congratulations on all the work that you're doing. How many of you all out there are lawyers? All right. You know, this is fantastic for us to come and reaffirm our commitment to the rule of law today, because usually on Law Day, we're just sort of doing the rah-rah thing. But today we remember we're fighting to protect the rule of law, right? It's an all-out fight. There's a sign behind me about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a young man who was taken out of my district and whisked off to El Salvador, to the most dangerous prison in the world, without any kind of due process. And the Republican colleagues have the nerve to say that he actually got due process, because in 2019, there was a judge who said, don't send him to El Salvador, or don't put him with MS-13. But that's exactly what the Trump administration did. And they acknowledge it was wrong, but they still defend it and still won't bring it back. We won't stand for that, will we? We've got to fight to make sure that he gets brought back. And think about the 4-year-old kid that they just sent out of here. Stage 4 cancer. Can you believe it? And they didn't even let him take his medicine with him. And they're still standing trying to defend sending him out of here. It's illegal, it's wrong, it's unconstitutional, and we're going to beat it, right? This is a fight for the heart and soul of the United States of America and democracies around the world. This is a pivotal moment in history, and we've got to make sure we're going to win, aren't we? Yeah! We got to win. All right, I'll do the oath real quick. I'm going to do the D.C. oath because it's shorter. I'm also a member of the D.C. bar. I, Glenn Ivey, do solemnly swear or affirm, let me put my hand up, that as a member of the bar of this court, I will demean myself uprightly and according to law, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America. Donald Trump, are you listening? Pam Bondi, are you listening? Are those lawyers who are going in pretending that Garcia should be in El Salvador, are they listening? We've got to make sure that they hear what we're saying today, so they follow due process and follow the rule of law. Thanks so much, and keep up the fight.
Thank you, Representative Ivey. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you all. From Texas now, we have Representative Fletcher, who will share Texas's oath.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, what a beautiful sight. I'm so glad to see all of you here today and to be here with all of you today, with my wonderful colleagues who are so inspiring. And of course, one of my mentors who made it here all the way from Houston, and so many lawyers from across the DC area and from across the country who are here today because we understand the times that we are living in. And we are here to retake our oaths of office, our oaths as lawyers, the cornerstone of our profession and our promise to our fellow Americans. We're here to support the Constitution of the United States and defend the Constitution of the United States, and to protect the constitutional rights of all who live here. We are here to ensure due process and make sure that we are opposing anything that undermines due process. And we are, as my oath says, which I'm about to take, we are here to conduct ourselves with integrity and honesty. And that is what we do as lawyers, as representatives and members of the bar. And it is what we need all Americans to do today. So I'm so proud to retake the oath that I swore when I was admitted to the State Bar of Texas back in 2006. I didn't need these glasses then, but I do now. I, Elizabeth Pannell Fletcher, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, that I will honestly demean myself in the practice of law, that I will discharge my duties to my clients to the best of my ability, and that I will conduct myself with integrity and civility in dealing and communicating with the court and all parties, so help me God.
Thank you so much, Representative Fletcher. Next up, from Oregon, Representative Suzanne Bonamici, who will share Oregon's oath.
Thank you all. Thank you, lawyers, friends of lawyers. I just want to say I started my career down the street as a government lawyer for the Federal Trade Commission. So thank you. Thank you to the federal lawyers, the workers who are still fighting it out, and those who have lost their jobs. I also want to give a shout out to our federal public defenders. I have fought for defense funding for years because we need public defenders to have a strong system of justice, too often unrecognized. Thank you to the federal defenders. I also worked for a law firm. Thank you to the law firms who are standing up to this administration and to their outrageous attacks. Thank you to those law firms. And finally, I want to say that I'm here to reassert my oath to the Constitution, an oath I took when I became a member of the bar in 1983, an oath I took as a member of Congress, and I will reaffirm today. But I want to say we're standing in front of the Supreme Court today. Our court system, our Article 3 court system is here to resolve disputes. It is not for retribution against political enemies. So I, Suzanne Bonamici, swear that I will faithfully and honestly conduct myself in the office of an attorney in the courts of the state of Oregon, that I will observe and abide by the rules of professional conduct approved by the Supreme Court of the state of Oregon, and that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the state of Oregon. To the court, opposing parties, and their counsel, I pledge fairness, integrity, and civility, not only in court, but in all written and oral communications. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bonamici. And now, lastly but not least, we have Representative Hank Johnson from Georgia.
Good afternoon. In 1775, 250 years ago, at the Second Virginia Convention, in the run-up to the Declaration of Independence, July 4th of 1776, these words were uttered by an American patriot, a farmer, a politician, and a lawyer. His name was Patrick Henry, and he uttered these 7 words: "Give me liberty or give me death." Today we stand in front of the citadel of the rule of law, which undergirds our democracy, the United States Supreme Court. And we, lawyers from across the country, are gathered in front of this edifice to democracy to affirm and fight for, or pledge our support and fight for the rule of law and for the independence of the judiciary. 2 very important concepts that undergird our freedom. We're here to fight for that. Lawyers fight for justice. No matter what type of law you practice, you find a way, or you should find a way, to fight for justice. But as we get older and we acquire debt and opulent tastes for living, sometimes the ideals that we adhered to as youth, we no longer find useful. And unfortunately, we have 10 top powerful law firms in this country that should be supporting the rule of law, but instead They are conspiring and consorting with those who would undermine the rule of law. And if those lawyers can't fight for our system, that means that the clients that they represent have cause to worry whether or not they're going to worry more about their own profits per partner than bringing justice to their clients. So as a lawyer who took the bar and passed and was sworn in front of a Superior Court judge in DeKalb County, Georgia, back on July 3rd of 1979, I took an oath similar to this one. The current one says that I, Henry C. Hank Johnson, Jr., swear that I will truly and honestly, justly and uprightly conduct myself as a member of this learned profession in accordance with the Georgia Rules of Professional Conduct as an attorney and counselor, and that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Georgia. So help me God. Even though I'm a Buddhist, so ladies and gentlemen, let us never forget the vow, the oath, the pledge that we took as young lawyers to do justice. Let us never forget that. And let us remember, what would Patrick Henry think of us at times such as this? He said, "Give me liberty or give me death." Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Representative Johnson. And thank you to all of our congressional colleagues for those powerful reminders of our shared commitment across different jurisdictions. Now that we have been reminded of our oaths and their import on Law Day, in a moment I will invite all attorneys present to join me in raising your right hand to join in the ceremonial oath reaffirmation. And I invite our distinguished guest, retired administrative law judge Leslie Suzanne, to join me on the podium and lead us in reciting the DC oath.
I just want to really quickly call out another category of lawyers and judges that haven't been mentioned. I just want to give a shout out to the administrative judiciary, which led the way in being under attack and is still under attack, and works tirelessly at state and federal levels to be sure agencies do in fact faithfully execute the laws. So please raise your right hand as we collectively reaffirm our oath to the Constitution and to our profession. I will read the oath and ask you to repeat after me, filling in your name. I, Leslie Suzanne, do solemnly swear that as a member of the bar of the court, I will demean myself uprightly and according to law, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to ask all of you who just had your hands raised to please raise them one more time so I can capture the view from up here for anyone who could not be here before. Thank you all so much. Oh, just a moment while I get the papers that have flown away. Thank you, buddy. Okay. I hope that this moment of solidarity will strengthen our resolve to fulfill the promises we have made to our clients, to our courts, and to our country. Whatever challenges lie ahead, let us face them with the integrity and courage befitting members of this honorable profession. As we prepare to leave this gathering, and please don't leave quite yet, as we're going to ask everyone for a photo if possible, I want to thank everyone who made this extraordinary day possible. To our distinguished speakers, thank you all so much. Thank you for lending your voices to this crucial cause. To our partner organizations and sponsors, thank you for standing shoulder to shoulder with us in defense of these principles. To every attorney who retook the oath today, thank you for recommitting yourselves. Recommitting yourselves to the Constitution and the rule of law. That promise is not just words on paper, it is the foundation of our democracy. To every lay person who joined us, thank you for recognizing that this fight belongs to all of us. She, of course, did not put it on the script, but I want to thank my colleague Sterling Howard and also Zainab Youssef, who made all of this happen. So thank you. And I also want to thank my daughter, Carly, who inspires me every day to never stop fighting for the future of this country. What we have done here today, it matters. It matters because we have silenced us. It matters because we've demonstrated that the legal community stands united in defense of our constitutional principles, and our work does not end today. In fact, it is just beginning. This moment requires more than words. It demands that we take action on our oath. What does that mean? It means speaking up when we see threats to judicial independence or attacks on our profession. It means using our legal skills to challenge unconstitutional actions through strategic litigation, amicus briefs, and pro bono services for those most effective. And it also means educating our communities about why these seemingly lawyerly issues matter for everyone's rights and freedoms. Yes, thank you. At Lawyers for Good Government, we are committed to supporting and coordinating this ongoing response. You will notice that many of the signs around you have a QR code on them. If you will please use those QR codes or go to l4gg.org/law day, you will find information about how to take next steps and stay engaged. You can subscribe to receive meaningful action items that you can take as lawyers to defend the rule of law and civil rights. You can volunteer with our programs to help those most impacted by government overreach. Stay engaged with this community so that together we can continue to stand up for our justice system. Remember why we all entered this profession. For most of us, it wasn't for wealth or status. It was because we believed in justice. We wanted to help people, and we believe in the power of law to protect the vulnerable and to hold the powerful accountable. Our profession has faced dark moments before, during McCarthyism, during the civil rights era, and at so many other pivotal points in our history. Every time there were lawyers who stood firmly for principle and helped guide our nation back to its better self. This is our moment to do the same. As we leave here today, please carry with you the knowledge that you are not standing alone. You are part of a nationwide community of legal professionals who refuse to be silent in the face of threats to our system of justice. Thank you for your courage, your commitment, and your presence here today. I have one final request before you disperse. We would like for all attorneys who reaffirmed their oath today to please, if you can, remain for just a few more minutes, and I will ask you to gather here in a moment in front of the stage for a group photograph. We hope that this image will serve as a powerful visual reminder of this nationwide stand for the rule of law. When future generations look back on this moment, we want them to see not just words, but the faces of those who stood up when it mattered. So please, once I step away from the podium, please do not go on the steps of the Supreme Court. That's very important. But once I step away, please come forward and help us document this historic day. Thank you so much. Let us go forth and never stop fighting for the rule of law. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
Facing intimidation and even threats for making rulings that some find politically inconvenient. Lawyers are being punished, even sanctioned, for the simple act of representing their clients. And the public's trust in our courts is being undermined by rhetoric that prioritizes partisanship over principle. When judges feel forced to look over their shoulders, and when lawyers worry that representing someone zealously in court might cost them their career, the system begins to fracture. We cannot let that happen. That's why we're here, not just to raise our voices, but to show with our presence that we're willing to stand up for the institutions that make justice possible. As members of the legal profession, we have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution and to faithfully serve the cause of justice. That oath doesn't expire, it doesn't bend with political opinion, and it doesn't shrink in the face of intimidation. We're here today to protect that system. The rule of law means something. It means that no person. The rule of law means something. It means that no person, not even the most powerful, is above it. It means that courts must base their decisions on facts and law, not fear or political pressure. And it means that attorneys must be able to speak up and stand up for their clients without fear, intimidation, censorship, or retribution. This isn't abstract. These principles directly affect our communities, our clients, and our country. I hope you'll join me and attorneys across Dallas and across the country in reaffirming our commitment to justice, not just today, but every day. If you're a member of the public here today, thank you. You don't have to be a lawyer to care about this. You just have to care about fairness, about democracy, about your rights, and your neighbor's rights. This is your fight too. So what comes next? Speak up when judicial independence is undermined. Educate your community about why a fair and impartial court system is essential. Support efforts that preserve access to justice and protect the rights of all people, not just the privileged or the powerful. And most of all, stay engaged. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Benjamin Franklin was famously asked at the close of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, "Well, doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" He responded, "A republic, if you can keep it." Let this be one of the ways we keep it. Let this be the start, not just of a day of action, but of a deeper recommitment to our values as legal professionals and as citizens. Thank you for being here. Thank you for using your voice. And thank you for helping to protect the rule of law for all of us. Next, I'd like to introduce Attorney Cheryl Whatley. That's CHERYLWATTLEY. She began her career as an assistant U.S. attorney in the District of Connecticut, representing the United States in civil litigation. She later transferred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Texas here in Dallas, where she focused on the prosecution of white-collar crime, serving as chief of the Economic Crimes Unit. She served on a variety of civic and professional boards and committees, including the State Bar of Texas Board of Disciplinary Appeals, the District 6 Grievance Committee, the Dallas Bar Foundation, and the Board of Regents for Texas Women's University. She is a frequent speaker and panelist, participating in presentations with the Dallas Women's Leadership Symposium, the American Board of Trial Advocates, and other community and legal organizations. She would take up the time we have here today, but I'm going to let you hear from her directly. Please welcome Cheryl Whatley.
Thank you for your presence here this afternoon. As I stand here today as a lawyer, not representing any institution or organization, I am reminded that almost 45 years ago, in a small courtroom in that federal courthouse behind us, I stood to take my oath as an assistant United States attorney. It was the second time that my young career that I would take that oath, but this time it was different. This time the judge who would administer that oath was an icon and a historic figure. Because for my generation, one of our defining moments was the assassination of President John F. Kennedy just a few blocks from here. And we had watched on TV a small, diminutive woman who looked even smaller against the towering image of Lyndon Johnson swear him in as president. And years later, that judge, Sarah T. Hughes, would swear me in as an assistant United States attorney. I am remembering this today because the image of Judge Hughes administering the oath of office to a man about to embark on the highest office in this country, and my memory of her administering the oath to me, symbolizes that which connects the highest office to every federal servant. We are bound together by our oaths. My first obligation as a prosecutor was captured in the words, to support the Constitution. It's included in many oaths, and it's particularly in the Texas Attorney's Oath. Support the Constitution. It tells us within its very wording that one of the reasons the Constitution was written as it was to establish justice. Capital J, justice. Establish justice. Words so easily spoken, but yet it is a mandate to us. A call that should be uniquely important to attorneys. It was clear to me that as a prosecutor, I had a special obligation to be impartial, to be fair, to exercise my authority and discretion with integrity. Never, ever as a tool of power to exact retribution or retaliation. Established justice does not include the use of criminal prosecution to manipulate an elected official. It does not support the use or threat of criminal investigation to silence or intimidate political opponents or adversaries. It does not permit bully tactics that threaten the independence of the legal profession and the judiciary. It does not sanction the disregard and abandonment of due process and fundamental procedures. So what does established justice, capital J, mean? What does it require? It requires an embrace of the rule of law. The belief that everyone is accountable under the law, fairly and impartially applied. It is the simple but profound principle that no one, no individual, no matter your wealth, no matter your prestige, no matter your position, no institution, no government is above the law. That is what protects us from the abuse of power. And that is what demands respect for an independent judiciary. And that is what lawyers are called upon to protect. On that day, so many years ago, I promised also to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That promise makes us recognize that the threats do not always come from outside our borders, that there may be persons from within our own country who would seek to weaken and perhaps destroy the pillars of our liberty. That promise obligated me to stand up, to guard against those who would undermine the establishment of justice, to stand as a shield against those who would try to destroy our democratic institutions. As we stand here today under these kind of threatening stormy clouds, there's a darkness over the rule of law, an effort to dim our foundational principles. But our coming together here in Dallas and across the nation to celebrate the rule of law is the light that will shine through this darkness. Our commitment, our understanding that lawyers have a unique and special obligation to be on the front line, to constantly strive for the establishment of capital J justice, will break through these clouds and repel those efforts. We understand the mission. We hear the call. And we know that our silence is complicity. And so we are here with our presence and our voices and our public recommitment to the attorney's oath. So let me end my remarks this morning with the closing words of the oath that I took those so many years ago, when I pledged to support, protect, and defend the Constitution, and with words that conclude our Texas attorney's oath. So help me God.
Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome up Judge Dominique Collins. That's DOMINIQUECOLLINS. Judge Dominique Collins presides over Dallas County Criminal District Court Number 4. She also oversees the Dallas County Veterans Court, which gives justice-involved veterans who complete treatment of their combat-related PTSD an opportunity to have their cases dismissed and expunged. Prior to first being elected in 2012, Judge Collins served Dallas County as Assistant District Attorney and has extensive experience handling both felony and criminal cases. She received her law degree from St. Mary's University in San Antonio and will be here to share a few words and then administer the oath to any attorneys that are here who would like to symbolically retake the oath. And on a personal note, I consider myself very honored and lucky that Judge Collins agreed to administer the attorney oath to me back when I passed the Texas bar nearly 10 years ago. And she was also kind enough to officiate at my wedding 7 years ago. So both still going good with both of those. So please welcome Judge Dominique Collins.
Travis is trying to make me cry. What are we doing next? So it's an honor and privilege to be here with you today. As far as I'm concerned, the sun is shining very brightly. Those ain't clouds. Super excited to be doing this with you. I've done this hundreds of times, but following on the heels of Ms. Watley's words, it's extra special. Thank you for that. All right, Texas lawyers, you all ready? Yes. All right, put up your right hands. All right, I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, that I will honestly demean myself in the practice of law that I will discharge my duties to my clients to the best of my ability. That I will conduct myself with integrity and in civility in dealing and communicating with the courts and all parties. Help me God. Help me God. With civility. Remember that part.
Thank you again to Judge Collins. So we wanted to keep this short for everybody over the lunch hour, but as I said at the beginning, this is only the start. We have more work that is coming up and that's ahead of us. Please, if you RSVP for the event, we have your contact info. If you haven't, please visit DallasForRuleOfLaw.com. This is a volunteer organization that needs more attorney volunteers, people in the legal profession, and public support. You can also scan the QR code that's on these signs, or go to lawyers4theruleoflaw.com if you're an attorney to sign on to a statement that is national. There's over 40 states represented, attorneys from 40 states, and I think we just hit 500 signatories today. So please sign on to there. There's still more work to do, but I think this is a great start for here in Dallas and across the nation. And a quick thank you to our sponsors, including Rudner Law Offices and Gasper Law. Thank you again. We'll be in touch. And as we said, this is only the beginning. Thank you, Dallas.
Yes, I know. Okay. Did you? I guess it's okay. Oh, you are? I have quite a collection.
All right, good for you.
So my daughter.
Good. She did a good job.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
Good evening, and welcome once again to Your Legal Rights on KALW 91.7 FM, San Francisco Bay Area. I'm the host of Your Legal Rights, Jeff Hayden. Tonight's broadcast carries a message that, at this moment in time, we can celebrate the Constitution and the rule of law, while at the same time recognizing there may be changes afoot that we should all be watching. National Law Day is a yearly observance on May 1st, dedicated to celebrating and reflecting on the rule of law and its importance in American society. Since its 1957 inception, National Law Day is a day to appreciate the legal system and its contribution to freedoms and justice. Amidst the deteriorating legal and political atmosphere, this year's celebration of Law Day is going to be different. You might ask, why? Just what is threatening the rule of law? From political pressure on judges to retaliatory efforts to targeting lawyers simply for doing their jobs, the threats to the legal independence are real and growing. These are not abstract legal debates. When judicial and legal independence are compromised, everyone's rights are at risk. The National Law Day of Action is a coordinated response rooted in shared values, a commitment to upholding the rule of law, defending judicial independence, protecting the legal profession, maintaining nonpartisan and peaceful engagement, and promoting a public understanding of what's at stake. Nonpartisan. Every guest, every supporter of this action has stressed keeping it peaceful and nonpartisan. The Law Day reaffirmed the Oath Project, now a part of National Law Day of Action, was conceived of the efforts of the Bar Association of San Francisco and another group known as Lawyers for Good Government, each working independently of the other. The result and this number is not sufficient. It's grown since, but as of yesterday, 49 different U.S. cities, well over 100,000 lawyers, some at federal courthouses nationwide, others virtually, will repeat the oath of office they took however many years back, including swearing in allegiance to the Constitution. This movement is overwhelming, and nothing I can say can describe this movement or adequately tell its story. So we have an amazing panel of guests tonight. Joining us tonight, Brian Socek is a professor at law at UC Davis School of Law, where he teaches constitutional law and civil procedure. An expert on free speech, academic freedom, and equality of law, Professor Socek is the former chair of UC's System-Wide Committee on Academic Freedom and a member of the AAUP's Committee on Academic Freedom and Tenure. His book, The Opinionated University, Academic Freedom, Diversity, and the Myth of Neutrality in American Higher Education, will be published by the University of Chicago Press later this year. Sonia Mehta is a partner in the Oakland firm of Siegel, Yee, Bruner, and Mehta. She is a trial lawyer representing individual employees and labor unions. She also serves on the board of the Alameda County Bar Association, one of the sponsors of the Law Day of Action that will take place outside the Oakland Federal Court on May 1st. Gene Hyams is a mediator and trial attorney with Vinnick, Hyams Trial Partners. Gina has practiced law in the Bay Area for more than 35 years. She formerly served as president of the California Employment Lawyers Association and as a member of the Board of Women Lawyers of Alameda County. For the past month, she has been working with local and national bar associations and legal nonprofits to help organize this National Law Day of Action. Cheryl Nero is an attorney and mediator who serves on the Board of Lawyers Defending American Democracy, an organization focused on the unique responsibility of lawyers to defend the Constitution and the values on which our democracy depends. She's a past president of the Illinois State Bar Association, served for many years as a senior strategy advisor to the executive director of the American Bar Association, and worked as executive director to the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism. Trial attorney Peter Goldschneider of Redwood City is certified as a criminal law specialist by the California Board of Legal Specialization, State Bar of California. A past president of the San Mateo County Bar Association, Peter is a former chair of the Diversity and Race and Social Justice Committees of the San Mateo County Bar Association. And without further ado, let me wish welcome to one and all.
Glad to be here.
Let me start with a very simple question. What led to all this? What is actually going on that got this movement started? Who would like to field that?
Well, I'd be happy to start, and I think Jean is
No sound.
probably likely to want to weigh in as well. I think that all of us have had questions from our colleagues in the bar. What can I do? What can I do to help? What can I do as a lawyer as we see these actually unprecedented attacks on the judicial system, our judges, our courts, and a sense of frustration. How can we help turn this around and bring attention to it? And I think that it's probably no small coincidence that a good number of us across the country said that lawyers need to find a way to educate the public about what is happening, and to do it in a way that is completely not political and nonpartisan, and is wholly consistent with the promise that we made when we swore an oath to become officers of the court, and in most oaths swore to support, protect, and defend the Constitution. And we thought probably the most important thing we could do is have lawyers across the country publicly recommit to that promise in a way that would help citizens understand who we are, what we do, what our ethical responsibilities are, and at times like this, what our obligation is to speak out and to take actions that will fulfill our duty and our obligation to protect and defend the Constitution. And I think a number of us across the country all said, let's reaffirm our attorney's oath. And I think probably it was somewhat of a miracle that we all found each other. That Law Day of Action and Checks and Balances and the ABA and Lawyers Defending American Democracy, and all of us were able to find others who had the same idea and who possessed the same sense of urgency to make this a law day activity for all of us.
And before I go further, my understanding is that not just locally, but nationally, there are a lot of lawyers that are taking part in this. Do we have any updates on just how many cities this is taking place, or any idea about how many lawyers might be participating?
The last count that I saw was that we have 49 or 50 different cities that are participating in the Law Day of Action. And in some cities, there are multiple locations within the city. And we're quite sure that there are others who haven't made their way onto the national map yet. at the Law Day of Action website, lawdayofaction.org, there's a beautiful map that just shows the placeholders in cities all over the place, up and down the coast, but more importantly, or as importantly, in the middle of the country. We have Law Days of Action in Houston, in Dallas, in Miami, in Asheville, in Chicago, in Denver. I mean, it's really quite a broad base, and it's all come together very rapidly. I think that it's been about 4 or 5 weeks essentially of intense organizing, and I'm particularly thrilled that most of the push has come at the county bar association level. County bar associations are a pillar in the legal community locally around the country. And that's where lawyers from all practice areas, all backgrounds, all political persuasions come together. And what we've seen time and again is that the Bar Association boards have unanimously endorsed standing up for the rule of law and doing so together, regardless of what our political background is, because those of us who work in the courts every day, those who work within the legal constraints and the legal structures every day, understand how important it is that we honor the oath.
Before we go further, I'd like you to think about a couple of things. I'm going to invite some of our listeners if they care to tune in. But before I do that, I'd like you to have a chance to formulate your thoughts. And what I'd like to know are 2 things. The first is, just what does it mean to be a lawyer or an officer of the court? What responsibilities have we taken on? And why is this so important that we participate? The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, what does this mean to the folks that are listening? Very few of our audience are lawyers. Is there a role for them? Why are we taking on this battle? What does it mean to them? Should they be standing alongside us at this point? You're listening to Your Legal Rights on KALW 91.7 FM in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm your host, Jeff Hayden. Tonight, we're celebrating the Constitution and the rule of law. We're discussing a National Law Day of Action, which will take place tomorrow in several sites, including more than one here in the Bay Area. Tonight, we have an all-star cast. My guests include Professor Brian Socek, Professor of Law at UC Davis School of Law, Peter Goldscheider, trial attorney, mediator, and trial attorney Gene Hyams, Sonia Mehta, who's a trial attorney representing individual employees and labor unions, and Cheryl Nero, attorney and mediator who serves on the Board of Lawyers Defending American Democracy, an organization focused on the unique responsibility of lawyers to defend the Constitution. Our final and most important guest is all of you. If you have questions for my guest, if you have comments about the action we're taking tomorrow, our phone number is 415-841-4134. Again, that's 415-841-4134. If you're outside of the San Francisco Bay Area, call us toll free at 866-798-8255. That's 866-798-8255. As always, you can call regarding any question on tonight's topic. We're talking about a democracy. We're talking about the rule of law, the Constitution. You don't have to join in the exact point we may be in our conversation. We would love to hear from you, hear your thoughts. But let's circle back. What does it mean to be a lawyer or an officer of the court?
I can speak to that. It's a great honor to be licensed as an attorney. And I think there's a reason why society respects us. And it's because we are the guardians of the truth. The courtroom, in my view, is the only place that you have to prove what you're saying. You have to show the evidence, you have to have the facts, and you have to show how that evidence matches up to laws that were democratically created. You cannot advise your client to lie. You cannot, that's called suborning perjury, right? Judges are not permitted to be partial, to bring in their own personal feelings. it's the only place, in my view, that you have to bring the evidence. I mean, I know friends who are lobbyists, for example, and it's nothing like that world, right? It depends how everyone's feeling, and it, of course, it's very valuable, but it's not the kind of that, like they say, you have to bring the receipts. And I think that's an amazing thing, and I've always been honored to do that. And it's a kind of security too, that that you actually have to prove what you're saying.
I know that there are a few of us here, Sonia included, and Peter, as well as our esteemed host, who are in the courts all the time, and we're standing in front of juries. And I think the jury system is the most grassroots type of democracy that exists. Essentially, we take to the jury the question about whether or not there's been a violation of law, whether or not there's been harm that's followed that violation of law, and we hand to our fellow citizens the opportunity to make justice happen. And lawyers are, as officers of the court, as Sonia said, indispensable parts of making that happen. And we have to be able to work without the constraint of the concern that we're going to be retaliated against for doing what we're obligated to do, which is to zealously represent our clients within the bounds of the integrity of our profession. And unfortunately, what we're seeing right now, writ large, are attacks on the legal profession that undermine our ability to help hold up this pillar of democracy.
I think zooming out for a second, this is Brian Socek talking. I teach civil procedure at UC Davis, which is a class that basically every first-year law student takes at every law school across the country. And it's where they're supposed to learn the rules of the federal courts, but it's really a class about due process, which I think of as being a class that asks, what is it that the government has to give you before it imposes its violence on you, before it does something to you, whether that's move your fence line or order you to pay somebody damages or put you in jail or take away your children, all of the kinds of things. If people wanted to do it, they would just be settling and doing it on their own. So they're in court because they're asking the government to make this decision and impose it on others. And before the government, before the state can do that, it has to give due process. It has to follow particular procedures, the kinds of things that we were just hearing about. And one thing that always surprises my students is the fact that we at once have this system of justice here that's adversarial. It depends on there being two sides that are fighting for their position, that are making arguments as to why they're correct. But then, as Sonia and Jean were just saying, that's paired with the idea that just because it's adversarial doesn't mean you can play dirty. It doesn't mean you can just do anything or say anything you want. The adversarial process is in a very closely managed system, from the judges deciding what kinds of evidence can be admitted to the lawyers deciding themselves, how to live up to their ethical requirements, what it means to be an officer of the court, as we were just hearing. And so the problem right now is that we see both parts of that system under threat. We've seen lawyers at the Department of Justice being disciplined or fired for following their ethical duties. That's a real problem. And then on the other side of it, when it comes to the adversarial process, we've seen attacks against law firms. We've seen executive orders that are really coming after firms for doing exactly what we want lawyers to do, which is vigorously represent their clients within this adversarial process. And that's a huge concern. And so it's really inspiring to see these events that people have planned for tomorrow that highlights just the importance, not of let's have the court save us or anything like that, but let's make sure that everybody knows what these ethical principles are that our officers of the courts, our lawyers, are standing up for every day.
Jeff, what I'd like to pick up on it to some degree follows from that, but also your question about what the average public person who's not an attorney should know about and what they should learn. I don't think people realize that it's not controversial that court orders are to be followed. And when there's a dispute between the government and a private party, courts resolve the issue and the orders are to be followed. When there's a dispute between the branches of government, the courts are the final arbiters. This was resolved actually in 1803, as all the lawyers here know, in a case called Marbury versus Madison, where there was a dispute between Thomas Jefferson and other branches of government over how a certain commission would be created. And it was resolved by the Chief Justice Marshall, that this was the role of the courts and that there was to be no disobedience of that order. And to Jefferson's credit, he obeyed that order. Interestingly enough, Marshall also made an order in the 1830s when Andrew Jackson was the president, involving the removal of Indians, American Indians from reservations. And Jackson made a famous quote. John Marshall is still there 35 years later. That's how long he was on the court. John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. But in fact, all the parties and the people involved did obey the orders. And that's been the tradition in this country for over 200 years. So when now people in government and the current political atmosphere are saying they can't obey court orders, they don't have to, it runs totally afoul of our democracy and everything the country stood for all its history. And I think that's the most important thing for the public to know.
You know, it reminds me that sometimes lawyers use terms that the public doesn't understand. And one of those terms is rule of law. We talk a lot about that. And what we're saying when we say the rule of law is that our system is a system of laws that everyone, no exceptions, everyone is to obey our system of laws, which, as we heard just moments ago, are democratically decided. We pass laws in deliberations of people elected by the people. And the rule of law actually impacts most of the things that happen to us every single day. If you just get up in the morning and you get in your car, and on your way to work, you drive and stop at a coffee shop. You can drive your car safely because all people are held to the laws, to the traffic laws. You can trust that other drivers are going to stop at the stop sign. When you park your car and you go in to pick up the coffee that you want to have on your way to the office or to your work site, you know that the food that they're going to hand you is safe because there have been federal inspections of the food to make sure that it is not a dangerous product. And you know that the money that you hand to the clerk at the cash register is going to be accepted because the federal government stands behind our monetary system. When you get to work, you know that there are rules and obligations of your employer to treat you fairly and to make sure that your workplace is safe. And on and on and on. Those are all day-to-day examples of how the rule of law, the fact that all citizens are obligated to follow the laws and our judicial system is set up to enforce those laws, impact us on a daily basis and keep the quality of life, the health of our nation and the health of our people in place in standards that we all believe are fair and productive.
I don't want to challenge what you just said, Cheryl. This is Jean Hyams, but I do want to acknowledge that we're talking about the promise of the rule of law. We're talking about the promise. We're talking about the promise of democracy. Not all of the listeners have to completely agree that it all goes well. You know, somebody might run into you while you're trying, maybe at the stop sign.
But if they do,
the
whole idea of the rule of law is that somebody can look at it and arbitrate it and say, this person was careless or committed an infraction, and this is how we resolve this to try to make everybody whole.
100%.
That all comes out of the rule of law.
And I think it also is about the line in the Constitution that we're trying to make a more perfect union. We're probably not going to get to perfection, but we can all try to make it more perfect.
Let me take a moment. We have a caller I'd like to bring in. David in San Francisco. Welcome to Your Legal Rights.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you once again for the fine service you're providing by leading this program. I'd like to take this discussion out of the abstraction and bring it right home to the here and now. We have a tyrant in the White House who is depriving people of the right to be heard before they're sent out of the country to prisons without even being notified of what the charges are against them. We have a tyrant who is arresting judges for doing their jobs. We have a tyrant who is firing people from government jobs without cause. We have a tyrant who is dissolving the Justice Department Division of Civil Rights. That's why the lawyers are so angry. That's why we expect hundreds of thousands of lawyers to stand up and say, we will not stand this. This has to stop. We're all together.
Understand, David, I don't disagree with your sentiments myself. However, the overwhelming action, the overwhelming body of organizers and the people involved are nonpartisan. It is a nonpartisan action. There will be Republicans, there will be Greens, there will be Democrats, there will be every sort of folk that you can imagine, because this is not pushback against this administration or pushback against the president. It may look at some of the decisions he's made, but ultimately, this is all about our shared values and bringing everybody to the table to save these institutions.
Jeff, that's not a partisan position. The Fifth Amendment says no person shall be deprived of the life, liberty, or due process without due process of law. That's what the caller is saying.
I agree. And I would just say that, you know, without the rule of law, we're talking about violence, right? We're talking about naked violence.
And violence means a lot more than one person punching another or taking a gun or a knife. It could be a form of violence to take away what they own and say, neener, neener, you can't do anything about it because anarchy's broken out. Or to say, I'm the more powerful, so I can change the rules.
I think this is the different scale of,
I think that the attacks that we're seeing on the judiciary, the attacks on law firms, the unwillingness, not unwillingness, the blatant disregard for orders of the court, those are nonpartisan issues. I also think, and due process is a nonpartisan issue. The rule of law is a nonpartisan issue. It's a place where we can all stand together. And I don't think that the caller misstated anything, I will say, in any way. I think that's why we're up in arms. We are very concerned that there are concerted attacks on our form of government, or at least what we hope will be our form of government, and what we all work to make our form of government, which is a government that is the rule of law, not the rule of men.
As we start moving towards the next hour, I would like to focus on exactly what people can do about it and talk a little bit about what's going to happen tomorrow. I would like you to bring, to the extent that we can, bring in the non-lawyers as well. Let them know what we are standing for, because in so many ways, you look at these big firms, it's hard to be sympathetic until you realize they're a proverbial canary in a coal mine. It's not because they're major corporate work that they're getting into trouble. It's because the pro bono cases they do is trying to protect the underprivileged, is trying to reach out and help people, but in doing so, take a position that maybe is not politically palatable to one side or the other. And that's always been okay. It's always been the lawyer's job. And you may not be somebody who's on the front lines working with individuals and really reaching out to help people every single day, but you donate some time, you do something to help make this place better. And to the extent that that's being shut down because some official at some level finds it offensive, has basically been off limits for 250 years now, or just 2 years away from that. We hope that we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, still having a Bill of Rights and still having the rule of law. And that's what we're talking about tomorrow. You're listening to Your Legal Rights on KALW 91.7 FM, San Francisco Bay Area. We're talking about the Constitution and the rule of law. I have a stellar panel of guests tonight, including Brian Socek, professor of law at UC Davis, Sonia Mehta, a trial attorney representing employees and labor unions, Cheryl Nero, attorney and mediator who is on the board of Lawyers Defending American Democracy, an organization focused on the unique responsibility of lawyers to defend the Constitution. We have Peter Goldscheider, trial attorney and mediator, and trial attorney Gene Hyams. If you have questions for my guest, if you want to talk about where we are, we want to talk about tomorrow's actions, call us toll free at 866-798-8255. That's 866-798-8255. You're listening to Your Legal Rights. We'll be back right after this.
Support for KALW is provided by the Bar Association of San Francisco. If you live in San Francisco or Marin County, the Bar Association's lawyer referral service can arrange for you to meet with an attorney experienced in the area of law related to your situation. Call 415-989-1616 or visit sfbar.org for more information.
So what I really wanted to start talking about is just what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, I'm happy to jump in. This is Gene Hyams, and I've been lucky enough to be helping with the organization nationally and specifically with the Oakland Law Day of Action. I want to mention that this whole thing, as you said in the very beginning, and as Cheryl Nero was describing, came together in rather an amazing way. There were multiple organizations working on the same idea. Many people were inspired just by the idea of lawyers coming together to retake our oath of office. This is not what happens every law day. This will be a very unique experience. I haven't retaken the oath of office since I first became a lawyer.
I was just going to ask you that very question. Have anybody on the panel come back to take the oath again, just to show that you believe in the oath and that we should be striving to something higher?
Never felt the need before.
I am seeing no hands from anyone on the panel, myself included.
So in the Bay Area, there will be Law Day of Action events, rallies outside of federal courthouses in San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose, simultaneously at noon in each of those cities. Additionally, there are Law Day of Actions around the country, and the national website is lawdayofaction.org. And specifically for those people who can't make it to a Law Day of Action, the organization that Cheryl is involved in, Checks and Balances, is holding a virtual Law Day of Action. So folks can attend that as well. And it will be at each location, there will be speakers. Sonia will be speaking at the Oakland event, along with a number of others. And we are honored to have retired Alameda County Superior Court Judge Winifred Smith, who will be swearing us in, or re-swearing us in. The San Francisco action promises to be very lively and large, and I think is going to be followed by a march from the federal courthouse down to City Hall. And then in Santa Clara County, the Santa Clara County Bar Association is sponsoring the event at the San Jose Federal Courthouse.
Let me turn it to Anna Marie from San Francisco. Welcome to Your Legal Rights.
Hi, I called to support the caller who was pointing out the facts about what our current administration in the federal government has been doing. But I'm also glad that you spoke about the oath of office. That would be one of the things that is a reality, is that civics is not something that is taught. And so a lot of people don't focus on how we as a society are organized. So I don't know if you've already read, but the ABA site has a statement about what Law Day is, which I think might be useful. You could read it if you want to your audience. I read it for myself. But this is a very good opportunity to educate people. And one of your speakers was actually quite clear in trying to educate. So take the example of that's very simple, of one person who has another person with whom they interact, and then there's another person, and they have to decide, how are we going to interact? You know, you got to really make it simple. And that person, whoever she was, I thought was doing a good start to it. But it's very important to not assume that people know about the preamble to the Constitution or even what's in the Constitution. And I think one thing to start with is just read what the ABA says that Law Day is. Right on the front website page, there's a statement. And yes, I think it's a great idea to, again, read the oath of office. One of the things I do when I do my postings is, for example, when somebody throws up a negative about impeachment, I'll just actually give the statement of what impeachment is, the specific article, you know, just to put it there, and maybe, you know, somebody is learning something. So that's what I wanted to say. And I want to definitely support the caller because I think his point was quite on point. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. And I want to be really clear. I am very sympathetic to that to that caller who is a good friend. And my only issue that I would take is that tomorrow's action spans the entirety of the political spectrum. There are people who are at various stages of the spectrum, but as lawyers, we all understand the basic ideas of how the Constitution works, to some extent, some more than others. But we understand that these checks and balances are in place. We understand that there's a role for everybody. There's a role for the person that's the final arbitrator. And you would never think about disagreeing with the referee or the umpire and walking over and smacking them in the mouth because you don't agree with a call. At least hopefully you don't think about that. And yet our courts are facing those types of pressures. Let me turn it to Roy from Gilroy. Welcome to Your Legal Rights.
Thank you. I wanted to bring in a little different perspective about the erosion of the spirit of the Constitution. I saw an interview with Chuck Schumer, and they were asking him, well, you lost the Senate and the House to the Republicans. You know, what can you do about it? And he said, well, in the last days of the Biden administration, we were able to put in 225 progressive judges so we can use them to block things that the president is going to try to do. And I always thought judges were there to be an arbiter of the law and the Constitution, not activists. And I think he clearly stated that they're activists, and that's not in the spirit of the Constitution.
Chief Justice John Roberts put it quite well. There are no Republican judges. There are no Democratic judges. Everybody who comes into a judicial office had a legal career before they got there.
Constitution is not a document of convenience. It is a covenant, a promise between the people and those who govern, forged in struggle and renewed by every generation that defends it. So thank you all again for showing up, for speaking up, for standing firmly on the side of justice, the law, and the enduring promise of the Constitution. Andy Martinez is our freshly minted Doctor of Public Policy and Administration and your DBA president. Hi everyone, thank you today for that. I want to thank you all for being here today. Look around at each and every one of you. This is what democracy looks like. I want to start off by saying the American legal system has never been perfect. It was built with the ink and intent of stakeholders and colonizers, and from its earliest days, the law has been used to deny humanity, justify racial terror, and to exclude entire communities from its protections. But the story doesn't end there, because people fought, people organized, people imagined more. The law is not a neutral, self-correcting force. It often reflects the power of those who control it. And legality alone cannot be our North Star, because what is evil has so often been unjust. We cannot settle for restoring a broken status quo, longing for the return of what already failed so many of us, because that will not free us. The law that got us here is not the law that will get us out. Instead, we must use this movement and this moment to push forward. Every one of us has a role to play in reimagining the country we deserve, and lawyers have a particular responsibility. Our role is immense. We are called not just to protect the rights we already have, but to bravely imagine and construct the rights and lives we could. We are stewards of a flawed system, yes, but we are also architects for its future. We are here to carry the law forward, toward freedom, toward dignity, and toward liberation. As lawyers, we must be both guardians and visionaries. Guardians of fragile rights constantly under threat, and visionaries who can see beyond this moment to what justice could look like when it truly belongs to all of us. Esther Panic, one of the many attorneys who rushed to airports to defend detained families during the 27 travel ban, said it best. We're gonna fight like hell. Every lawyer is gonna fight like hell. And that is what we must do right now. Fight like hell. Not just for the law as it is, but for the way the law should be. Not just to preserve rights, but to expand them. Not just to delay harm, but create real safety, real freedom, real justice. And we must say clearly, the threats to the rule of law are not abstract. They are happening right now. We are watching an administration attack the independence of the judiciary, assert control over regulatory agencies, roll back protections for immigrants, trans folks, and communities of color, and weaponize executive power against dissent. These are not policy disputes. They are signals of authoritarianism, and they demand a legal profession that refuses to be complicit. When the law is bent to serve the few, it is our duty to stand for the many. We must defend the idea. No one is above the law, not even the president. Because if the law can be broken from the top without consequence, then no rights are safe for the rest of us at the bottom. Sergeant Marshall told us, he told us, where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out, because this is your country. This is your democracy. Make it, protect it, pass it on. So let this be our oath. We will not be silent. We will not surrender the rule of law to those who would twist it to serve power. We will defend what we have. We will dream of what could be, and we will fight like hell to bring it to life. we finish outside here, those who are attorneys are invited, you have a key to join inside the courthouse and pre-pledge your oath. You'll be able to do that in one of the courtrooms. The invitation will be sent to us, but you need ID to come in, and it'll be for attorneys at the end. But you still got some juice in us. I think we got some yelling to get out. Yeah. Hands up our courts! Hands up our courts! Hands up our courts! Hands up our courts! Hands up our courts!
This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
that they've taken on a different role when they don the robe and become a judge. Having clerked for multiple judges, 3 altogether, and they came from very different political backgrounds. And I can tell you almost every question that lands before the courts, you can find a very similar question has been asked before, and it serves as guides to what should happen. The judges are there to interpret what's happened and settle disputes between individuals. The judges don't come up with the idea of challenging laws or upholding laws. They don't even decide if a law is constitutional. They decide an individual question that someone has posed to them. They may look at a law violating in one particular way, and maybe the law doesn't violate that way. And on a later date, somebody else says, yes, but nobody asked about this other thing.
Jeff, can I just more directly answer what the caller was talking about?
Sure, jump in.
Activist judges are not what, not that I'm a big fan of Senator Schumer, but he's not talking about activist judges. Activist judges are people who create laws where there were no laws. What he's talking about is enforcing the laws against a political administration that wants to violate and not follow the laws. That is what he's talking about, not creating laws out of whole cloth where there were no laws to begin with. That's what activist judges means.
I do think that this is Jean. I do think that there is a trend, certainly a narrative that that is trying to take hold to suggest that we should look at judges as partisans. Certainly that's the way that they're being described. And then some of the attacks on judges is then being characterized as them taking a partisan position when in fact what they've done is to rule based on their evaluation of what the precedent is, as Jeff was saying, their understanding of the Constitution. But then the counterattack is they ruled against me, and therefore they're biased, and therefore they should be impeached. And that takes us down a very dangerous path, because the independence of the judiciary is paramount, is incredibly important, and there is a way within our system to challenge bad rulings. I've had plenty of bad rulings or rulings that I completely disagreed with. I've never called for the impeachment of any of the judges who ruled against me. What I've done is to appeal their rulings to the higher court and make my case there. And that's the way the system is supposed to work. And I will say, that certainly when you look at the breadth of the background of all of the judges who've been ruling on various of these executive orders, it spans the gamut in terms of who appointed them, going very far back and, up through and including the most recent president and the president who served as the 45th president, who's now serving as the 47th president. The judges are making rulings based on their understanding of the law. And Professor Sobczak, I know before we started, you were talking some about the attacks on the judiciary. I found your comments very interesting.
Well, I don't think we have to, this is Brian Sobczak, I don't think we have to deny that judges really span the political spectrum, or that legal questions sometimes present unresolved issues that allow them a lot of space in order to, a space to draw on some of those prior experiences and some of their deeper political and other commitments. I mean, after all, let's just acknowledge there's a reason that under the Biden administration, the courts in Texas were very busy, and that right now the courts in Boston, Massachusetts, in Maryland, here in California are suddenly getting a whole lot busier. When people have a choice as lawyers doing that vigorous advocacy we were talking about earlier, they have a choice sometimes in where they can file, and they're going to file in a place where they think they're going to get the most favorable hearing. I don't think we have to deny that to see that what Jean just said is absolutely true. I mean, despite this spectrum of judges with lots of different approaches to the law, they have been united these last couple of months in their response to various of the orders under the current administration, and especially in response to the way that the current administration is responding to these judicial orders. So, for example, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, issued a very rare statement back in March where he said this was just after President Trump had called for the impeachment of a judge who was stopping his attempted removal of migrants to El Salvador. And the Chief Justice said, for more than 2 centuries, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. And we've seen really moving opinions from some of the most conservative judges in the country. Harvey Wilkinson in the Fourth Circuit, just an icon of conservative judging, really issuing a plea to the executive branch to heed the judgments of the U.S. courts. And so, I think we're talking about something that is nonpartisan, not in the sense of what are the issues that these various court judgments have been striking down. Lots of people have different views on deportation, on, people feel different ways about removing people who are here without documentation. People have different feelings about the funding that universities like mine receive. They have different feelings, as someone said before, about big law firms. But what I think cuts across all of that is the due process point that none of those moves can happen, defunding universities, cutting off access and contracts to big law firms and security clearances at those law firms, deporting people. None of that can happen without obeying the fundamental rule of due process, which is just you have to tell somebody why it's happening. You have to give them a reason, and you have to give them a chance to respond, to give their side of the story. And that's something that I think you don't have to be a lawyer to understand, that if the government's going to come and call you a gang member or call you a non-citizen who's deportable, you would want to know why they think that, and you would certainly want the right to respond to say, no, I'm not those things.
I'm not even the person you think I am. This is somebody else's name.
Exactly. Without that, then, as Sonia said before, we're just talking about violence. We're just talking about the imposition of power. We're not talking about due process.
And there's another factor that we haven't really talked about, and that is, let's be honest, judges come and go. They have a career. It lasts so many years. They move on to other things. Politicians come and go. They sit in office for a while. They move on to other things. We're talking about the survival of institutions and the ability to have some place to go to settle our differences. They may be civil, they may be criminal, they may be a bankruptcy, they may be a probate, whatever it is. Those things start getting torn down. It doesn't bode well for all of us. We don't have that many minutes left, and I want to turn it to Cheryl and give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the idea of lawyers reaffirming their oath on Law Day. I understand that started with you, and I would love to hear, how did you come up with the idea, and how did you get hundreds of thousands of lawyers across the country to join in, to get sworn in tomorrow?
Well, I have to say that I'm beginning to believe this was just meant to happen. Because in addition to my thought in early February that this would be a great thing for lawyers to do, I've met all sorts of other wonderful lawyers around the country who came up with the same idea. We were looking for a way to answer that question. What can lawyers do together to help make our role and responsibility to our constitutional democracy clear to the American people? And we came up with this notion that it was all contained within that oath. Although there are 50 states and 50 different oaths, the vast majority of them begin with the phrase, I promise to defend and protect the United States Constitution. And I will freely admit, and I would bet most of the lawyers on this panel would freely admit that when we raised our right hand and said that oath those years ago, we didn't think we would ever be called upon. I mean, the thought never came into my head that someday I would have to defend the Constitution. And yet today, I know lawyers are wanting to stand up and fulfill that obligation. So I'd really like to encourage any lawyers, wherever you are, who are hearing this broadcast this evening, to join with your colleagues in your location in California or wherever you are across the country. There are 50 cities, there are 55 events, there are thousands and thousands of lawyers and judges who will be administering the oath in a symbolic way to let the American people understand that we are committed to do our job here. And I encourage you to go to a live event if you can do that, or I encourage you to go online in the ways that Jean described it before, and make this Law Day a day of education and a day of standing together and a day of recommitting ourselves to the work ahead. I am so proud of the folks that I have met in this endeavor and the wonderful people across the country who are helping all of these events be possible. And I believe that if you find the time and the way to join in, you'll feel good at the end of the day, as I'm confident we all will. And thank you, Jeff, for letting me make that little plea to get everybody who can and is able to participate in this meaningful day.
And it's not just for lawyers either. Lawyers are going to take the oath. The oath takes about a minute. It's not that long. And I'm going to ask one of my guests in a moment to read that oath, but the oath itself is not that long. I've never had that experience of being in a mass swearing, and I was sworn in a very private ceremony. But there's also a place for others to participate, to show numbers, to march, to show that you support the rule of law, that you support our government, that you support the way that disputes are resolved, the way that there's a system of rules in place so that we don't tread all over each other, so that we can all benefit, so that we're not crashing into each other, because we all know there are roads, there are stop signs, there are various ways to live. Let me turn it over to Sonia. Sonia, can you read the oath of office that a lawyer takes?
Yes, and on that point, I didn't even know Law Day existed. I always knew May 1st is International Workers' Day. And so there's actually, activities all over the country, all over the world in support of that.
And you can go to those after you come to Law Day.
That's right. And I did take this oath with a group of people with National Lawyers Guild, actually. But I, Sonia Mehta, solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of an attorney and counselor at law to the best of my knowledge and ability. As an officer of the court, I will strive to conduct myself at all times with dignity, courtesy, and integrity.
And you take this oath without deception or purpose of evasion, without reservation or purpose of, it's been a long time since I took it.
Indeed.
That's a beautiful statement.
So I'd like to turn it back to Jean and ask you, where are some of the places that this has taken place throughout the country?
Well, there will be a very large gathering in Washington, D.C. in front of the Supreme Court. Additionally, you can go to the West Coast, to San Diego, to San Francisco. There's an event in Sacramento, obviously San Jose and Oakland here. We've got, I believe, events in both Portlands, Portland, Maine, and Portland, Oregon. Austin, Texas, Dallas, and Houston, Asheville, North Carolina. Where am I missing? Philadelphia, will have a law day of action, certainly an important birthplace of our democracy. Cheryl, you've probably got the whole list. What am I? We probably don't have time to list all 50 of them at this point.
You know, Jean, you did a great job, and I can assure you that there are big cities and small counties, and one of my favorites is Durango, Colorado, mostly because it is the bar association that is in one of the most spectacularly rural, mountain, deserty thing, and there aren't a lot of people that live there, but Durango, Colorado is going to be very proudly celebrating Law Day tomorrow and reaffirming their commitment to support and defend the Constitution, as is Denver and Chicago and New York City and Brooklyn, Tampa Bay, Florida, Miami, Atlanta, Georgia. The list goes on. And I think it's going to be an opportunity for all of us to relive that really wonderful moment. I think that was quite awe-inspiring for me when, for the very first time, I said those words and was given a license to practice law. It was probably one of the proudest moments of my life. And I know tomorrow when I redo that oath, standing in downtown Chicago, I will be proud again to be with my colleagues at such an important time for our nation. So thank you, Jeff, again, for inviting me to participate with this wonderful panel. And thank you for letting us encouraging our fellow lawyers to take part in our events tomorrow.
Cheryl, thank
when
you
you
for
say that
joining
it's not
us.
just when you say that it's not just for lawyers, yeah, I'm sure people are thinking, why would I ever go to this? But listening to you all, I'm sitting here thinking, why do we go to weddings? Right? We're not going there because we're expecting to get married. We go to a wedding because it's inspiring. It's a tearjerker. It's an amazing thing to watch somebody commit to something beyond themselves. And of course, we invite people to weddings because we want our community to be there to keep us accountable, to help us live up to whatever it is that we vow. And so for us lawyers to be making this renewal of our vows, as it were, it would be wonderful to have all the people that are affected by, that will be affected by how successful we are or not at living up to those oaths going forward.
You know, along those lines, I'd like to pick up real briefly. I think I was done, Jeff, what you said before, that the attacks on the big law firms are not simply because they represent disadvantaged and groups that are discriminated against. They're representing people who are challenging the positions of power and contrary movements that are challenging those positions of power. And by attacking those law firms, you're attacking and destroying the system that allows those kinds of disputes to be equitably resolved.
And everybody can find their local action by going to the National Law Day of Action website. You can put in your zip code and it will show you your local action.
And if I can, I'll say one last thing. When we were trying, as you know, Sonia and Cheryl and I have had the pleasure of being on the national calls with Lawyers for Good Government, which is one of the main organizing bodies, and various other national organizations. And we tried to sum it up really simply and came up with lawyers versus lawlessness. That's what the National Law Day of Action is about.
As we close today, a bit of personal reflection. I am engaged in a criminal trial that's taking place right now. We begin tomorrow with closing arguments. If that forum were not there, how would these things be resolved? Is it any different when somebody dies and people fight over the property because they can't go to a probate court? Is it any different when someone's hurt because of an accident? And again, there's no making them whole because the other person says tough. You've been listening to Your Legal Rights on KALW 91.7 FM, San Francisco Bay Area. Tonight, we've been discussing the Constitution and the rule of law. Please be sure to join us again next week, where, as always, we take your calls and answer your questions. That's Your Legal Rights, Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. A big thanks to tonight's guests and to all of you for listening. And at the controls, Joanne Marr. I'm Jeff Hayden. Good night, and zealously guard your legal rights.
Support for KALW is provided by the Bar Association of San Francisco. If you live in San Francisco or Marin County, the Bar Association's lawyer referral service can arrange for you to meet with an attorney experienced in the area of law related to your situation. Call 415-989-1616 or visit sfbar.org for more information.
We need to have an independent judiciary, because just imagine if, President Trump decided that he really liked your property. He wanted your whole neighborhood because he wants to build a golf course there, but he doesn't want to pay you for it. He could come in and seize it, and who are you going to go to say this isn't fair? I invested in this, my whole life savings is in this house. If he wants it, he has to buy it from me, and I have to be willing to sell. If you don't have an independent judiciary that stands for the rule of law and says, yes, that belongs to you, it doesn't belong to him, or his lackey, his child, or his favorite, person, then you've got no recourse. It's Robin Hood, it's the sheriff of Nottingham. It's all that same stuff. We've seen this in so many movies growing up. It's what's happening. We really need to maintain that impartiality so judges are aware that they can make correct rulings that follow the law, and they will not be subject to punishment, imprisonment, arrest from the government, from the president. Otherwise, if they want your house, they can take your house, and you have no one to help you.
This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
No. People
Or just put on your head. I got it. Yes, go left back. Whoa, nice. Good. I like it. I like it. I'm surprised. Rated in the U.S. Yeah, you know what? It went to the new and it opened this one. Yeah. I knew it was like a good idea. But it was actually yeah. My mom loved it. I've never had good like that. No, yeah. That's why I was like ranked number 2. Like steamed eggs. After 1, I see. It's so hard to get red sauce. Yeah, I had to book that once. And then there's like the 9th. That's the only open spot. Yeah. I should buy that. I haven't had it. Well. We got Jason too. Did I call the body? We meet him. And I just said, let's go. Let's go. Yeah, it's ready to start. Yeah. How you doing? Good to see you. What you do, Meta?
That's funny.
The Matrix.
I mean, I'm just thinking about
at some point when they start talking, I might just have to.
Okay, so I'm not moving.
No, you'll be on, ready to go. You just have to move still.
Gotta stand up for your rights. Right. I'm the speaker, you know? Is that our ID, right?
Oh yeah, it's a phone. Not a well up there. Okay, okay. That's like my friend in movies. How are you? All right. Okay. Here, get Melanie to walk up here. See you? I think you'd be here. She's worried about going to El Salvador. Oh, right. Well, no. I was going to say, she hasn't admitted she's white.
I was just saying, the judge who ruled against Trump in Texas apparently was a Trump appointee.
I'm just saying, if you want Hammond to be here, I can stop it. We have blocked here, so no one walks in front of you.
I saw the message that came 300 people. That was yeah, I saw that. It's good. I haven't seen it. I saw one of those things. I just came. I didn't rally people.
Yeah, we have 3 people.
Yeah.
People outside. Yeah, I mean, I think.
Oh my God!
It would be judges, right? Yeah.
That's scary. That's scary.
Certainly not federal. I mean, they're changing.
It could be that.
They do.
So before we start, past
Of course. Oh, these constitutions. But I think they have to. They do the that may just be okay.
San Francisco, are you ready? To stand up for the rule of law. Wow, this is quite a crowd. I want you to know that we are not alone here in San Francisco. We are joined, standing shoulder to shoulder, coast to coast, 50 other cities across the United States. From Boston, Washington, D.C., Denver, Colorado, Indianapolis, Miami, Los Angeles, Seattle, thousands of lawyers standing here to support one principle, which is the importance of the foundation of our democracy, the rule of law. Thank you for joining us. My name is Charles Jung. I'm the president of the Bar Association of San Francisco, and welcome. And I love to hear those cowbells in the back because more cowbell indeed. Because we here are here to collectively sound an alarm for our system of government. And we stand here at the base of the Philip Burton Federal Building. We stand here before these walls of justice because the principles represented by those walls are under threat. Our nation and our democracy itself is built on a simple promise, and that's that we're governed by rules and by principles, and not by whims of any individual, no matter how powerful. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us a nation of laws and not individuals. And all of us here, and lawyers and supporters, the lawyers here swore an oath to support the Constitution, and that means defending that principle of the rule of law. And that defending that principle requires two things. First is the independence of our courts. That means judges that we can have confidence in that will rule based on law and facts alone, and not based on fear, and not based on threats. That also means independent lawyers. That means the rights of us as lawyers to zealously represent our clients without fear of retaliation or reprisal. But today, all of us here, we know that we're seeing threats to those two pillars. We see pressure on judges. We see threats to lawyers. But we here in this square in San Francisco and coast to coast, we are holding strong because we know that we are that last line of defense, that shield against tyranny. And as that shield, I say to you, we cannot compromise our principles. That's why we say here today, with one voice to those who would interfere, hands off our courts. 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 And as Alexander Hamilton wrote in Federalist 78, I had to Google that. It didn't come from memory. The courts have no army. They rely on their own legitimacy, and they rely on us as members of the bar to be their defenders. And we, as lawyers and the courts, we're that intermediary, and sometimes we have to serve as that shield between an unjust government power and the rights of the people. And today, that shield is more important, more critical than ever. And let me just pause here and make a personal observation. Here, this is just me speaking as an individual, not representing the Bar Association of San Francisco or any other entity. But in organizing this national rally and in talking with institutions, bar leaders, civil rights organizations across the country, it wasn't just in blue states, it was in red states and purple states and all shades of this beautiful country. And one thing that I'll share is this desire to say to us as individual lawyers and also as law firms, stand up. Stand up for all of us. Do not capitulate. You cannot bend a knee. That has consequences for all of us. You need to stand up and take courage. And when you do, America will be behind you. We will be behind you. Because I want to be clear as to what the stakes are. This isn't just about lawyers. It's not just about judges. It's about all of us as Americans. It's about all of us. And let me ask you a rhetorical question. Should our freedoms depend on who is in power? No! Do you want your rights subject to compromise or negotiation? No! That's why we're here today. That's why we're taking this stand. Because if we allow the independence of our courts and the independence of our profession to be compromised today, make no mistake that our rights will be subject to compromise and negotiation tomorrow. Because no freedom survives when those who defend it are silenced. And we here refuse to be silenced. We must remember that if justice bends, our freedoms end. And if lawyers fear, our rights disappear. If justice bends, our freedoms end. And if lawyers fear, our rights disappear. So today we stand up, we stand strong, and we stand together. And today we as lawyers will reaffirm our oath to support the Constitution, because that oath that we took is not a one-time ceremony. It is a commitment to the principles of the rule of law. So let our presence here be unmistakable. Let our voice show resolution. And let's show them, let's show everyone that would challenge this principle that lawyers united will not be divided. 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 So I say here, we need to protect our courts. because protecting our courts is protecting our rights. Protect the courts. Protect our rights. Protect the courts. Protect our rights. Protect the courts. Protect our rights. Thank you, San Francisco. And let me just extend an invitation to each one of you here in this plaza. We're going to have two short speeches, and then Judge LaVarce Cordell will administer the reaffirmation of the oath to support the Constitution. After that, we're going to take a nice, peaceful, leisurely stroll down to City Hall, and I want each one of you to join us. So. It's my great pleasure to introduce our City Attorney, David Chiu. Good morning. Do we have any lawyers here? Do we have San Francisco here? Are we ready to fight? Are we ready to fight for our democracy? Are we ready to fight for the rule of law? Are we ready to fight for the Constitution? Are we going to take back our country? Are we going to take back our democracy? Are we going to take back America? Thank you for being here. I wish you could see what I see, which is you represent the beautiful diaspora that is not just the Bay Area legal community, but America. And I want to thank the Bar Association of San Francisco for coming. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I wish we were here under different circumstances. Until this year's Law Day event, many of us never thought about the need to commemorate the rule of law because we took it for granted. But today, my friends, we can't. We've just experienced the most disturbing first 100 days of a presidency in our country's history. So many rights being trampled, citizens being deported, a culture war against our trans kids, diversity, equity, inclusion turning into the three most controversial words in the English language, abortion rights further eviscerated, our planet being destroyed, issues so fundamental, we need to fight for them. But let me be clear, Mr. Trump, we see you. We know that you are targeting our communities and targeting these issues to distract us from other things. Let's talk about what you are really doing. You are destroying our economy. Yes. You are enriching yourself and your oligarchy. Yes. And you are dismantling our government and our democracy. Yes. I recently read a terrifying book called When Democracies Die. We think authoritarian regimes only come to power after violent coups. But political scientists have documented how many modern democracies have died without a single shot being fired. Because when an autocrat takes power, through one illegal act at a time, through the subtle erosion, the quiet dismantling of democratic institutions, democracies die. When people don't realize what's happening, when they're watching Netflix, hanging out with their friends, don't want to see the newspaper, believing they still live in a democracy, that's 1930s Europe. That is 1970s Latin America. My friends, I think a lot about a poem from World War II Germany. First, they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there's no one left to speak for me. Let me tell you how that poem would read today. First, they came for the immigrant and birthright citizens. And then they came for the LGBT families and trans kids. And then they came for federal workers and scientists and universities and our media organizations. And then they came for lawyers and law firms. And then they came for Abrego Garcia and Judge Hannah Dugan, all in the first 100 days. As far as I know, we still live in a democracy, but how many of you are worried? Now, Dr. King reminds us that our measure as human beings is not where we sit in times of comfort and convenience, but where we stand in times of challenge and controversy. I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you to do today. And an hour ago, I was on a call with 3 attorney generals from around the country. And we talked about 3 things: the need to build crowds, the needs of the courts, and the need for courage. Crowds. We need to organize. At a time when people feel fearful and helpless, we have to come together. Like today, like this rally, like 50 rallies around the country. We need to show no one is alone, because we are warriors, strength in numbers. We need to overcome collective action barriers, because let me tell you, it is hard for anyone alone to stand up to a bully. But we know a little thing about bullies. If you give in to a bully today, he will hit you again tomorrow. But bullies stop when we all stand up together. Am I right? Let me just ask you a question as your city attorney. If I told you that if you wanted to win an outside counsel contract from my office, you would have to give me $100 million in legal services, does anyone think that is corruption? Let me ask every law firm that is represented here today, if we all lock arms, we can stand together for the rule of law. Let's talk about the courts, because we are gathered here as members of the legal community. I think the most important thing everyone who is here can do is to step up as attorneys. How many of you went to law school not because you wanted to make money, because you believe in values that are bigger than ourselves? How many of us took that oath because we actually believe in it? Let me tell you what we all know. In a time when the only independent branch of government is the judiciary, our courtrooms are where we hear, and only those of us who have sworn an oath as attorneys can act. At this moment in history, we are the Jedi Knights. We can wield the legal lightsabers that can defend our communities, can defend our Constitution, can cut through the lies, can cut through the chaos, and can stop President Trump. As your city attorney, I am so proud of the incredible professionals in my office. They are working around the clock on lawsuits to protect birthright citizens, our sanctuary cities, our federal funding, our right to health care, to teach at-risk kids in our classrooms. And you know what? We have won in the first rounds of all the cases that we have filed. As the chair of the Civil Prosecutors Coalition, which is the largest city attorney county council offices in California, we are all engaged together in that fight. But we need you. There is so much more work that needs to happen. And this gets to my last point around courage. Harvey Milk once said, I am here to recruit you. To recruit you, and you, and you, and you. To represent individuals and organizations who
who are being targeted, to write amicus briefs and to challenge unconstitutional federal rulemaking, to join my office and other public offices in litigating lawsuits against the Death Star. My friends, we need to give them hope. Are we ready to give them hope? Are we ready to fight for the rule of law? Are we ready to fight for our democracy? Are we ready to do our job as lawyers? May the force be with you all and Godspeed. Thank you very much.
Hello, San Francisco legal community. I am Kelly Germany from the awesome law firm Leith Cabraser, Hyman and Bernstein. See you over there. Along with these great people behind me, I am a past president of the Bar Association of San Francisco, the most fabulous bar association in the entire world. I am so delighted and so proud to see you all here today. And thanks, Bassett, for the honor of the invitation to speak. I'm going to be real with you. Over the past 3 months, we have witnessed unprecedented attacks on our civic norms and national values. As Charles and our city attorney, David Chu, explained to you, we have seen sweeping policy initiatives that have frightened vulnerable communities, alienated international partners, and thrown our economy into a tailspin, implemented through presidential decrees that evade congressional input and exceed executive authority. Whether you agree or not with the goals of the administration, and let me be clear, I do not agree, it's my way or the highway style of government is not rooted in our Constitution.
That's right.
The only brakes on this runaway train have been court cases, chipping away at the most egregious abuses of power. But in response to those, the administration has retaliated, attacking courts, suggesting that judges be impeached, questioning the very legitimacy of the judicial branch. It's been a very scary time as we dance on the edge of a constitutional crisis from which our country may never return. But while many powerful institutions have disappointed us as they bend and bow at this brink, our courts have held strong. Our incredible courts. I want to take this moment to really give an appreciation for the judges across the country who, especially now, have stayed true to their oath. They stayed true to their oath of impartiality to interpret the law no matter the power or the pettiness of the parties before them. Thank you, judges. And as Charles said, hands off our courts.
Hands off our courts! Hands off our courts! Hands off our courts!
Now, if anyone who has glanced at the Constitution or read some American history knows, our country is founded on the ideal of representational government. Like having no kings is kind of our brand. And our democracy relies on a rule of law that applies to all of us without exception. But based on things I've seen in this very short time this year, I'm starting to think that maybe everyone that's now in government should be required to watch all the episodes of Schoolhouse Rock. Do y'all remember Schoolhouse Rock?
Yeah.
Okay, Schoolhouse Rock was a staple of my childhood, and it featured those short videos, you may recall them, with the catchy tunes that were shown alongside Saturday cartoons, teaching generations of American kids basic civic lessons about our Constitution and government. And in one circus-themed episode that I rewatched recently, Schoolhouse Rock explained the 3 rings co-equal branches of government: executive, legislative, and yes, judicial. And as the chorus of the episode goes, no one part can be more powerful than any other is. Each controls the other you see, and that's what we call checks and balances, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to keep singing to y'all. But it's pretty straightforward, right? Like even a 6-year-old understands this concept. But no matter where or when you learn this basic principle, it's all too clear that constitutional governance sharing that is foundational to America is now under existential threat. And this is where we come in, all of us. Every lawyer takes an oath to the Constitution of the United States. That oath compels us to be here today, united across our backgrounds and political affiliations as officers of the court, to stand up for the rule of law. We have seen in just barely 100 days that our institutions can be fragile if we are not vigilant. That to be alert is not enough. We must be active. And activity without courage is just cooperation by another name. We are at our best when we come together in common purpose, empowering legions of others to do the same for the betterment of our society. And in that vein, I want to call out some heroes of our profession from these last few months. In addition to the judges that we applauded earlier, a big round of applause again for our incredible city attorney, David Chu, city attorney, all of our public lawyers who uphold the law with their smart litigation and tireless public education. Law firms who have resisted executive orders targeting the ethical practice of law and demanding that you disavow principles of inclusive meritocracy, multiculturalism, and equity that are essential not only to the administration of justice, but to our core values as Americans. We thank you for saying no. In particular, a huge shout out to our colleagues at Perkins Coie. That's right, Sussman Godfrey, Covington and Burley, Jenner and Block, and WilmerHale. We commend you for fighting back. You have modeled courage, and we have been so proud to support you. To our good friends at Keckert, Van Ness, thank you for being among the first firms in the country to issue an unambiguous public statement of support for the firms targeted by the executive orders. We see you, Keckert. And a standing ovation for the great team at Munger, Tolles, and Olson, organizing the nearly 900 law firms who signed on one or both of the amicus briefs in the Perkins and Sussman cases. As an aside, I'm going to say how proud I am that my own firm and so many other plaintiffs' firms stood up for our professional siblings across the aisle. Justice has only one side, my friends. And I want to shout out one more group, and a great example of how courage is contagious. After the Perkins Coie amicus brief was filed, a group of AmLaw 200 law firm partners from firms that did not sign the amicus brief formed their own consortium called Law Firm Partners United. And growing growing to over 750 members by the time of the Sussman amicus briefing. That group filed its own amicus brief in support of Sussman, even while their law firms did not stand up. That is the type of principle, character, and courage that we desperately need, so thank you. And finally, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but friends, we cannot let up. There are so many challenges right now. You've heard so many described from this stage. Please, please pick at least one fight to get involved in. We need to organize. We need to educate, rally, write, litigate, volunteer, and yes, fundraise for the work ensuring that our precious system of justice remains vital. So thank you for the volunteering. Thank you for showing up. And thank you most of all to Bassif, Yolanda Jackson, Charles Young in particular, for your leadership on this day and every day, in convening us and enabling us to cast our lot on the right side of history. Legal community, let's go.
San Francisco, are you ready to stand up? Yeah! Are you ready to fight back? Yeah! Stand up. Yeah! Fight back. Yeah! Stand up. Yeah! Fight back. Fight back. Hands off. Hands off. Our courts. Our courts. Hands off. Hands off. Our courts. Our courts. Are you ready to retake the oath to support the Constitution? It's my great pleasure to introduce our amazing Executive Director, Yolanda Jackson.
Oh, what a beautiful sight to see all of our family and legal friends. Thank you for all of your support of the Bar Association over the years. Again, I want to give a shout out to all of our amazing past presidents standing behind me. Thank you for showing up and showing out today. You all have shaped this organization into what it is, and today we are an activist organization that wants to protect our democracy. So thank you for all being a part. I thank you all for being a part of that. I want to now introduce our next speaker who will help us reaffirm our oath that many of us took 30, 40, 50 years ago. But we don't forget it. We need to be reminded sometimes. And so I'm going to welcome to the podium Judge Ladores Cordell, retired from the Santa Clara County Superior Court. Thank you so much. Happy Law Day. The lawyer's oath is as old as the legal profession itself. Today, lawyers utter substantially the same vows sworn by lawyers hundreds of years ago. And yet, taking the attorney's oath is not just a ritual. It is not a meaningless gesture. The oath is a reminder of a lawyer's core ethical duties, and it is a promise to abide by those duties. The solemnity of reciting the oath before a judge, before one's peers, before one's community, and here before the world underscores the importance of your commitment to support the Constitution, your commitment to the rule of law, and your commitment to the integrity of an independent judiciary that today is facing increasing political and personal attacks. Charles Hamilton Houston was a Harvard University, was a Harvard Law graduate. He was the dean of Howard Law School. He was the first Black member of the Harvard Law Review, and he was a brilliant legal strategist who devised the court challenges that led to the Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus Board of Education. Charles Hamilton Houston famously said to his law students, one of whom was Thurgood Marshall, a lawyer's either a social engineer or a parasite on society. I think that what Charles Hamilton Houston meant was that every lawyer, every judge, whether you are in big law, a solo practitioner, a prosecutor, a public defender, whatever your path in the law, you should always use your legal talents to make this world a better place. By reaffirming your oath, you are recommitting to doing just that. When you speak up, when our judges are unfairly attacked, when you lawyer up to protect due process, when you stand up for democracy, when you lift up young lawyers just starting their careers, you are fulfilling the solemn oath in the spirit of Mr. Houston. So I thank you, lawyers, judges, those current retired, for being upstanders and not bystanders. And thank you for being here, joining with lawyers and judges around the country to reaffirm your oath. So let's do it. Every lawyer, even if you're retired, every lawyer and every judge, current and past, will you raise your right hands? And I need you to repeat after me. The first word I'm going to say is I. And then each of you, you shout your names to the heavens. Ready? I. And repeat after me and say it and shout it like you mean it, please. Solemnly swear or affirm. Solemnly swear or affirm. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. And the Constitution of the State of California. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of an attorney and counselor at law. Of an attorney and counselor at law. To the best of my knowledge and ability. To the best of my knowledge and ability. As an officer of the court. As an officer of the court. I will strive to conduct myself at all times. I will strive to conduct myself at all times. With dignity. With dignity. Courtesy. Courtesy. And integrity. And integrity. Now turn to one another and high five the hell out of them.
San Francisco, it's still lunchtime. We're not done yet. We're going to take a nice, orderly stroll to City Hall. And so what I'm going to ask everyone to do, we're going to march down that ramp and occupy this street over here. So let's start gathering over there, start making our way down to the street.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
Fair trial due process. There's a relation whom I deeply admire, Werner von Rosenstiel. He, like me, was first an attorney in Germany and later also in the United States. He emigrated to the US in 1939 and fought for democracy against Nazi Germany. In his book, Tales of an American Soldier, he quotes his ideal and former boss, Justice Jackson. What separates justice from vengeance is fairness. This is from Jackson's opening statement in 1945 for the Nuremberg trial. Jackson describes the effect of the presidential decree from 1933, which suspended individual liberties without the right to a judicial hearing, among other legal safeguards. Secret arrests, indefinite detention without charges, without evidence, without hearing, without a counsel. No court could issue an injunction or writ of habeas corpus. This is why I understand justice as fairness.
I stand for the rule of law because as long as I can remember, when we studied the Constitution in high school, I learned what the phrase meant and what it stood for. I always believed it was the law of the land and no one was above the law. Even the president of our great country is not exempt. The rule of law is essential to ensure our citizens' rights and freedom are not breached. It is also a necessary document to enable a reliable and equitable way for the United States of America to operate. Even as a child growing up, my parents instilled in their children that all men are treated equally under the law, no matter who they are in their titles.
I stand for the rule of law because, well, I think the devil's speech from a man for all seasons says it better than I can. So my husband and I are going to do it for you.
So now you give the devil the benefit of law.
Yes, what would you do? Cut a great road through the law to get after the devil?
Yes, I'd cut down every law in England to do that.
Oh, and when the last law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper, the laws all being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's law, not God's. And if you cut them down and you're just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? Yes, I'd give the devil the benefit of the law for my own safety's sake.
We need to have an independent judiciary, because just imagine if, President Trump decided that he really liked your property. He wanted your whole neighborhood because he wants to build a golf course there, but he doesn't want to pay you for it. He could come in and seize it, and who are you going to go to say this isn't fair? I invested in this, my whole life savings is in this house. If he wants it, he has to buy it from me, and I have to be willing to sell. If you don't have an independent judiciary that stands for the rule of law and says, yes, that belongs to you, it doesn't belong to him, or his lackey, his child, or his favorite, person, then you've got no recourse. It's Robin Hood, it's the sheriff of Nottingham. It's all that same stuff. We've seen this in so many movies growing up. It's what's happening. We really need to maintain that impartiality so judges are aware that they can make correct rulings that follow the law, and they will not be subject to punishment, imprisonment, arrest from the government, from the president. Otherwise, if they want your house, they can take your house, and you have no one to help you.
This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.
The rule of law, because the rule of law is about fairness. Fairness includes a fair trial, due process. There's a relation whom I deeply admire, Werner von Rosenstiel. He, like me, was first an attorney in Germany and later also in the United States. He emigrated to the US in 1939 and fought for democracy against Nazi Germany. In his book, Tales of an American Soldier, he quotes his ideal and former boss, Justice Jackson. What separates justice from vengeance is fairness. This is from Jackson's opening statement in 1945 for the Nuremberg trial. Jackson describes the effect of the presidential decree from 1933, which suspended individual liberties without the right to a judicial hearing, among other legal safeguards. Secret arrest, indefinite detention without charges, without evidence, without hearing, without a counsel. No court could issue an injunction or writ of habeas corpus. This is why I understand justice as fairness.
I stand for the rule of law because as long as I can remember, when we studied the Constitution in high school, I learned what the phrase meant and what it stood for. I always believed it was the law of the land and no one was above the law. Even the president of our great country is not exempt. The rule of law is essential to ensure our citizens' rights and freedoms are not breached. It is also a necessary document to enable a reliable and equitable way for the United States of America to operate. Even as a child growing up, my parents instilled in their children that all men are created equally under the law, no matter who they are and their titles.
I stand for the rule of law because, well, I think the devil's speech from a man for all seasons says it better than I can. So my husband and I are going to do it for you.
So now you give the devil the benefit of law.
Yes, what would you do? Cut a great road through the law to get after the devil?
Yes, I'd cut down every law in England to do that.
Oh, and when the last law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper, the laws all being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's law, not God's. And if you cut them down and you're just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? Yes, I'd give the devil the benefit of the law for my own safety's sake.
We need to have an independent judiciary. Because just imagine if, President Trump decided that he really liked your property. He wanted your whole neighborhood because he wants to build a golf course there, but he doesn't want to pay you for it. He could come in and seize it, and who are you going to go to say this isn't fair? I invested in this, my whole life savings is in this house. If he wants it, he has to buy it from me, and I have to be willing to sell. If you don't have an independent judiciary that stands for the rule of law and says, yes, that belongs to you, it doesn't belong to him, or his lackey, his child, or his favorite, person, then you've got no recourse. It's Robin Hood, it's the sheriff of Nottingham. It's all that same stuff. We've seen this in so many movies growing up. It's what's happening. We really need to maintain that impartiality so judges are aware that they can make correct rulings that follow the law and they will not be subject to punishment, imprisonment, arrest from the government, from the president. Otherwise, if they want your house, they can take your house and you have no one to help you.
This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence.
It's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States.
At least this court has seen the blatant unconstitutional action of this president, and now we're back to the status quo. We're back to the rule that has been the law of this land now for generations, that you are an American if you were born in the United States.
It makes no sense for local economies. It makes no sense for the people that care for these places. It makes no sense for the well-being of our most treasured places in this country.